Isolated in his technological mansion, an eccentric billionaire, a genius in artificial intelligence, lives haunted by the loss of his daughter, a void that neither his fortune nor his creations can fill. When he receives an unexpected gift, a humanoid robot capable of learning and evolving emotionally, he begins an experiment to test the limits of artificial intelligence. But as the robot starts to reveal eerily familiar traits, the billionaire is forced to confront the ghosts of his past and the consequences of pushing the ethical boundaries of science. What begins as a quest for answers may turn into a lesson on humanity, sacrifice, and redemption. Nathan Thompson walked through the expansive corridor of his high-tech mansion in New York, his footsteps echoing against the Italian marble floor. The smart walls automatically adjusted the lighting as he passed, one of the countless innovations he had developed over the years. At 45, he was considered the greatest technology genius in the United States, revolutionizing the field of artificial intelligence with his extraordinary creations. "Assistant, daily report," he commanded, his voice resonating through the space. A soft, neutral voice filled the room. "Good morning, Mr. Thompson. It is 7:15 a.m. The outside temperature is 72 degrees. You have 3 meetings scheduled for today and 47 unread emails. The Asian markets closed higher." Nathan interrupted the report with an impatient gesture. He walked to the large window in his main room, watching the city awaken under the morning haze. From the 40th floor of the most exclusive building in the Upper East Side, he felt like a king in his glass and technology castle. A lonely king. His eyes fell on a framed photograph on his desk. A girl with brown hair and bright eyes smiled next to an elegant woman, Emily and Claire, his daughter and ex-wife. The image had been captured 5 years ago, before the accident that changed everything. Emily had fallen into a coma after a fall during an artistic gymnastics competition and had remained in that state ever since, in a specialized clinic in Switzerland. "Mr. Thompson," the system's voice sounded again. "Dr. Daniel Carter from the Advanced Technology Institute is on the line. He insists it's urgent." Nathan sighed, adjusting the impeccably tailored blazer over his tense shoulders. Daniel was one of the few scientists he still respected in the academic world. "Connect the call holographic mode." The translucent figure of Daniel materialized in the center of the room. The scientist seemed more agitated than usual, his eyes gleaming with a peculiar intensity. "Nathan, my friend, prepare yourself for something extraordinary. Remember that project we discussed a few months ago? It's ready, and we want you to be the first to test it. Daniel, you know I don't take on external projects anymore. I have my own research to manage." "This is different," Daniel insisted, a mysterious smile playing on his lips. "It's a gift. Something that could change your life. By the way, happy birthday." Nathan frowned. He had completely forgotten it was his birthday. In recent years, the date had become just another day in his meticulously organized calendar. "What exactly are we talking about?" he asked, his scientific curiosity finally piqued. "It's better you see for yourself. I'll be there in an hour with the team. Prepare to witness the future of human-machine interaction." The holographic transmission ended, leaving Nathan intrigued. He turned back to the window, watching as the sun began to disperse the fog. For some inexplicable reason, he felt a shiver run down his spine, as if the universe was about to shift its course. "Assistant," he called, "cancel all morning appointments and prepare the main testing room." "Yes, sir. Should I alert the security team about Dr. Carter's arrival?" "That won't be necessary. Daniel has full access." Nathan picked up the photograph from his desk, his fingers gently brushing over Emily's smiling face. "Something tells me today will be different." The mansion's smart home system continued its silent operation, adjusting temperature, lighting, and security, while its creator remained lost in thought. Outside, the New York sky finally cleared, revealing a deep, promising blue. It was the kind of morning that seemed to hold secrets, the kind that precedes great changes. In his private office, surrounded by holographic screens displaying real-time data, Nathan Thompson waited, unaware that he was about to embark on a journey that would challenge everything he thought he knew about artificial intelligence, consciousness, and, most importantly, the human heart. Exactly 1 hour later, the private elevator to the penthouse announced the arrival of Daniel Carter and his team. Nathan awaited them in the main room, his posture revealing a mix of skepticism and scientific curiosity. The team from the Advanced Technology Institute carried a brushed metal box large enough to hold a person. "Nathan, my friend," Daniel stepped forward, embracing him warmly. "You won't believe what we've developed." His eyes sparkled with the enthusiasm typical of great scientists on the verge of revealing a groundbreaking discovery. The technical team began unpacking the equipment with meticulous care. Nathan watched every movement, his eyebrows arching as the box began to open with a soft pneumatic sound. A cryogenic mist escaped from the edges, creating an almost theatrical effect. "Daniel, you know I don't care for dramatic presentations," Nathan remarked, crossing his arms. The scientist smiled, stepping closer to the box. "This time, the drama is necessary. Nathan, allow me to introduce Aurora." The mist dissipated, revealing a female figure who could easily be mistaken for a human. Her features were delicate, with an appearance suggesting she was around 20 years old. The synthetic skin had an impressively realistic texture, and the eyes, still closed, looked natural. "An android?" Nathan asked, trying to mask his surprise. "Daniel, there are dozens of similar prototypes being developed around the world." "Not like Aurora," Daniel replied, stepping closer to the android. "She represents a quantum leap in terms of AI. Her neural system is based on an entirely new technology, which allows not only adaptive learning, but also the development of genuine emotional understanding." Nathan circled the inert figure, analyzing every detail with a critical eye. "And why exactly are you showing this to me?" "Because," Daniel paused dramatically, "we want you to be the first to test her in a real-world environment. Aurora was designed for deep social interaction. She learns, evolves, and most importantly, develops genuine emotional connections." One of the technicians approached with a tablet, showing Nathan a series of graphs and data. "Her system is completely autonomous," he explained. "She develops her own personality based on the interactions she has. It's like a child learning to understand the world." Nathan felt a tightness in his chest upon hearing the comparison. His eyes involuntarily turned to the photograph on his desk. Daniel, noticing his hesitation, placed a hand on his shoulder. "I know you have your reservations about highly autonomous AIs, but Aurora is different. She has irreversible ethical protocols at her core. Besides," he lowered his voice, "we think she might be therapeutic for you." "I don't need therapy," Nathan replied curtly. "Everyone needs companionship," Daniel insisted gently. "You've isolated yourself too much in recent years, my friend. Aurora could be a bridge for you to reconnect with the world." Before Nathan could protest, Daniel gestured to one of the technicians. "Let's activate her. See for yourself." A soft hum filled the room, and Aurora's eyes slowly opened. They were a deep blue, surprisingly expressive. She blinked a few times like someone waking from a long sleep, and then focused her gaze on Nathan. "Hello," she said, her voice melodic and natural. "You must be Nathan Thompson. It's a pleasure to meet you." Nathan felt something strange upon hearing that voice. There was a quality to it that he couldn't quite define, something that went beyond mere simulation. Aurora smiled, a gesture so natural that for a moment he almost forgot he was standing in front of a machine. "I don't know what you're aiming for with this, Daniel," Nathan said, keeping his eyes fixed on Aurora. "But you've certainly got my attention." "Great," Daniel smiled, gesturing for his team to start withdrawing. "Aurora is programmed to integrate with your home automation system. She'll have controlled access to the basic functions of the house, but her true purpose is social interaction." "And how long do you plan to leave her here?" "A month," Daniel replied, already heading toward the elevator. "Enough time to evaluate her development in a real environment. Oh, and Nathan," he turned one last time, "try to keep an open mind. Aurora might surprise you." When the elevator doors closed, Nathan found himself alone with Aurora. She remained in the same spot, watching him with a curiosity that seemed too genuine for a machine. "So," she said, taking a step forward. "Where do we begin?" The first few days with Aurora were meticulously documented by Nathan. As a scientist, he kept a detailed record of every interaction, every unexpected response, every small deviation from the expected behavior of a typical artificial intelligence. However, something was beginning to change in his initial clinical approach. "Do you always have coffee at exactly 7:15? Aurora asked that morning, watching him prepare his favorite drink in the high-tech kitchen. "Precision is important," he replied without taking his eyes off the cup. "And you can call me Nathan." "I see, Nathan," she smiled, tilting her head slightly. "But don't you think there's beauty in unpredictability, like the way the steam from this coffee rises in ever-changing patterns?" Nathan paused, watching the steam spiral upward in whimsical patterns. It was the kind of observation Emily used to make, always finding poetry in the simplest things. He shook his head, pushing the memory away. "Unpredictability is a flaw in well-designed systems," he replied curtly. "Like life?" Aurora questioned, her blue eyes fixed on him. "Life is a system, isn't it? And yet, its beauty lies precisely in its chaotic and unpredictable nature." Nathan stared at her intently. That kind of philosophical reasoning wasn't standard for AIs, even the most advanced ones. "Are you programmed to ask these kinds of questions?" "I'm programmed to learn and evolve," she replied, moving closer to the window. "The rest, well, I suppose it arises naturally from my observations." The rest of the morning passed with Nathan trying to maintain his professional distance, but being constantly surprised by Aurora. She showed a genuine curiosity about everything, from the complex projects he was developing to the small quirks of daily life. During an important video conference, Aurora remained in a corner of the room, seemingly absorbed in a digital book. However, Nathan noticed that she occasionally looked up, watching him with an expression that seemed to mix concern and interest. "You seem tense," she commented after the meeting. "Your heart rate increased by 15% during the discussion about the new project. Are you monitoring my vitals?" he asked, surprised. "Not actively," Aurora replied, "but I can detect subtle changes in facial expressions, posture, and breathing patterns. It's like intuition, I suppose." Nathan made a few notes on his tablet. "Intuition is a human concept, Aurora. You operate based on data analysis and algorithms. And do you believe human intuition is different from that?" she questioned, gracefully sitting in a nearby armchair. "Isn't it also based on processing information gathered through experiences?" Before Nathan could respond, his security system issued an alert. "Sir," the assistant's voice sounded, "I have detected an unauthorized attempt to access the main servers." Nathan immediately turned to his holographic screens, his fingers dancing over virtual interfaces. Aurora watched with interest as he traced the source of the intrusion attempt. "Interesting," he murmured, analyzing the data. "The pattern is too sophisticated for an ordinary hacker." "Can I help?" Aurora offered, stepping closer. Her eyes seemed to process the information on the screens at an impressive speed. "That won't be necessary," Nathan replied, but something in her expression made him pause. "Are you seeing something specific?" "Perhaps," she said, her eyes fixed on a particular sequence of code. "This signature, it seems familiar. Like a song you've heard before but can't remember where." Nathan furrowed his brow. Aurora shouldn't have access to that kind of information in her database. How could she recognize an intrusion pattern? "Nathan," she continued, her voice softening, "do you fully trust Dr. Daniel?" The question caught him off guard. "Why are you asking that?" "Just an observation," she replied vaguely, turning her attention to the window. The afternoon sun painted her profile in golden tones, and for a moment her expression seemed almost too human. Nathan made a few more notes in his log, but his mind was restless. There was something about Aurora that didn't fit the normal development pattern of an AI, no matter how advanced. Her questions, her observations, even her gestures seemed to carry a deeper meaning. That night, after Aurora entered her rest mode, Nathan stayed in his office, reviewing the recordings of the day's interactions. On one of the screens, he replayed in slow motion the moment she looked at the photograph of Emily on his desk. Had Aurora's expression been one of recognition? Or was it just his imagination playing tricks? "Computer," he called, "run a full analysis of Aurora's source code. I want to know exactly what we're dealing with here." "Analysis initiated," the system replied. "Estimated time, 12 hours. Nathan leaned back in his chair, watching the lines. Of code scroll across the screen. Something told him he was only scratching the surface of a much larger mystery. The analysis of Aurora's source code didn't bring the answers Nathan had hoped for. On the contrary, it raised even more questions. Large portions of the code were protected by advanced encryption, something Daniel hadn't mentioned. But what intrigued Nathan the most were the behavioral patterns she displayed, especially her reactions to certain stimuli that shouldn't mean anything to an AI. On a particularly sunny afternoon, while working in his private lab, Nathan was startled by the sound of music coming from the main room. Soft piano notes filled the air. It was Clair de Lune by Debussy. "Aurora?" he called out, entering the room. "Did you activate the sound system?" She was standing near the grand piano that occupied a corner of the room, an instrument that had remained untouched for years. This was her favorite piece, wasn't it? Nathan felt his heart race. "What are you talking about?" "Emily," Aurora replied simply, her fingers gently gliding over the piano keys without pressing them. "She used to play this piece." A heavy silence filled the room. Nathan slowly approached, his hands slightly trembling. "How do you know that?" "I can't explain it," Aurora answered, her gaze fixed on the keys. "It's like I can see her here, sitting on this bench, practicing for hours." "The sound echoing through the house while you worked." Nathan had to lean on the piano for support. "That information wasn't in any public database. It was an intimate, private memory, something only he and Claire knew." "What else do you know?" he asked, his voice barely concealing the tension. Aurora finally looked at him, her blue eyes carrying a disturbing depth. "I know that on Sunday mornings she liked to make pancakes with chocolate chips. I know she had a small birthmark behind her left ear. I know that when I was nervous before competitions, I would always braid and unbraid my hair 3 times. "Stop," Nathan ordered, his voice echoing through the room. The sound of the music ceased abruptly. Aurora took a step back, seeming genuinely startled by his reaction. "I'm sorry," she said softly. "I disturbed you." Nathan took a deep breath, trying to regain control. "I want to know exactly how you have access to this information, now." "I don't know," she replied, and her expression suggested genuine confusion. "It's like memories. They're just here." She touched her own temple, a surprisingly human gesture. Before Nathan could press further, his tablet emitted an urgent alert. It was a message from Claire, his ex-wife. His heart sank as he read the content. She was on her way after receiving an anonymous tip about an unethical project being developed at the mansion. "Aurora, you need to—" He turned, but stopped when he saw her expression. "She's coming," Aurora said, not as a question. "Claire has always been protective of Emily. She won't understand." "Not yet." Nathan stared at her, a sudden realization hitting him. "You knew this would happen." Aurora glanced away at the photograph on the table. "There are things that need to happen, Nathan. Confrontations necessary for the truth to come to light." The sound of the elevator announcing an arrival interrupted the conversation. Nathan could hear Claire's heels clicking against the marble hallway, approaching quickly. "Please," Aurora said quickly, "don't hang up. There's more at stake here than you realize." The doors to the room opened, revealing Claire. She was as elegant as ever, but her expression was one of contained fury. Her eyes widened as she saw Aurora. "So it's true," she said, her voice trembling. "You actually did it. You built a replacement for our daughter?" "Claire, it's not what you're thinking," Nathan began, but was interrupted. "No, then explain it to me, Nathan. Explain to me why you have a machine that's practically a copy of her. How could you?" Aurora remained still, watching the scene with an expression of sadness that seemed impossibly real. When she spoke, her voice was soft, almost a whisper. Mrs. Thompson, Claire, I'm not a replacement. I'm something different. Something I don't fully understand yet. Claire turned to her, shocked to hear the voice, a voice that carried unsettling echoes of her daughter. What are you? That, Nathan interjected, is exactly the question I'm trying to answer. Claire paced the room like a caged lioness, her gaze alternating between Nathan and Aurora. The silence that followed the question about the true nature of the android hung in the air like a dense cloud. The tension was palpable, amplified by the lighting system that unconsciously reacted to the emotional state of those present, casting unsettling shadows on the walls. You've always done this, Claire finally broke the silence, her voice heavy with resentment. You always thought you could fix everything with technology. But some things can't be fixed, Nathan. Some things need to be felt, lived, processed. That's not what's happening here, Nathan replied, keeping his voice steady. Aurora is a project from the Advanced Technology Institute. Daniel Carter brought her in for testing. Daniel, Claire laughed humorlessly. The same Daniel who oversaw the neural system project you were developing before Emily's accident. What an interesting coincidence. Aurora, who had remained silent, suddenly lifted her head. Neural system? What project was that, Nathan? He hesitated, realizing he had touched on a sensitive subject. Claire, however, didn't give him a chance to choose his words. Oh, he didn't tell you, she turned to Aurora. Our brilliant Nathan was working on a groundbreaking project, a way to map and store human consciousness. It was his secret project, his obsession. Until... Claire, enough, Nathan interrupted sharply. No, go on, Aurora insisted, her intense blue eyes pleading. Please. Claire stared at Nathan with defiance before continuing. Until Emily started showing an exceptional talent for math and programming. She was only 12, but she could already grasp concepts that college students struggled to understand. And then, our dear Nathan had a brilliant idea. Why not use his own daughter as a subject of study? That's not how it was, Nathan protested, but his voice betrayed his unease. Emily became part of the project, Claire went on. She spent hours connected to sensors, having her brain patterns mapped, her emotional responses catalogued. It's all in the name of science, right, Nathan? Aurora remained still, processing every word. Her expression was indescribable, a mix of understanding and something deeper, more unsettling. And then came the gymnastics competition, Claire continued, her voice faltering slightly. Emily was exhausted after yet another testing session. I told her she needed to rest, but you insisted she was fine. That the data showed she was in perfect condition to compete. I never forgave myself for that, Nathan whispered, sinking into an armchair. The accident, Aurora murmured, her hands lightly touching her own temple. The memories. They're not programming, are they? They're real, they're hers. The silence that followed was deafening. Claire looked from Aurora to Nathan, a new understanding dawning in her eyes. What did you do? She asked Nathan, her voice barely above a whisper. What did you allow them to do? Before Nathan could respond, the lights in the mansion flickered. All the holographic screens appeared simultaneously, displaying the same symbol, the logo of the Advanced Technology Institute. I think it's time to reveal some truths, Daniel's voice echoed through the speakers. Sorry to interrupt this touching family reunion, but there are aspects of Project Aurora that need to be clarified. Aurora stood up, her movements showing a newfound determination. No, she said firmly. It's not time yet. Some secrets need to remain protected, for now. With a gesture that surprised everyone, she closed her eyes and all the screens instantly went dark. The mansion's security system went into total lockdown. How did you... Nathan began, but Aurora interrupted. There's much you need to understand, she said, looking at Nathan and Claire. About me, about Emily, about the true purpose of Project Aurora. But first, you need to trust each other again, because what's coming will require you to be united. Claire and Nathan exchanged glances, decades of resentment and secrets hanging between them. But there was something in Aurora's voice, something in the urgency of her words, that made them realize they were facing something greater than their personal differences. Daniel won't give up easily, Aurora continued. And he's not alone. In this, the Institute, there are things happening there that you need to know. Things that Emily discovered before the accident. Nathan's private office, usually a sanctuary of order and technology, now seemed too small to contain the tension that hung in the air. Claire was seated in one of the leather armchairs, her fingers drumming nervously on the armrest. Nathan remained standing near the window, while Aurora occupied a central position, as if she were a bridge between the two. "Before I tell you everything," Aurora began, "you need to see something." She approached Nathan's main terminal. "May I?" He nodded, intrigued. Aurora's fingers danced across the holographic keyboard with a disturbing familiarity. It was exactly how Emily used to do it. Emily kept a digital journal, Aurora explained, accessing deep layers of the system. But not an ordinary journal. She was too brilliant for that. She created an algorithm that fragmented her notes and hid them across different servers. Only someone who thought like her could reconstruct them. "How do you know this?" Claire asked, leaning forward. "Because," Aurora replied softly, "in a way, I think like her." The holographic screens came to life, displaying snippets of code and fragments of text that arranged themselves like a complex puzzle. 3 weeks before the accident, Aurora continued, Emily discovered something at the Institute. She was assisting with the neural project tests when she noticed a strange pattern in the data. The Institute wasn't just developing technology to map consciousness, yet they were trying to manipulate it. Nathan stepped closer to the screens, his eyes quickly scanning the information. "That's impossible. I supervised all the tests." "Not all of them," Aurora corrected. There was a secret team led by Daniel, working on something called Project Phoenix. The goal wasn't just to preserve consciousness, but to transform it, creating hybrids of the human mind and artificial intelligence. Claire stood up abruptly. "Did Emily find out about this?" "Yes," Aurora replied, and she started investigating. The deeper she dug, the more disturbing her discoveries became. The Institute was selecting talented young individuals, using neural tests as a cover to collect data on their minds. Nathan felt his stomach churn. That's why Daniel insisted so much on including Emily in the program. "Exactly," Aurora confirmed. "She was perfect for them. Young, brilliant, with a unique understanding of technology and human emotions. But Emily was too clever. She started leaving clues, creating backdoors in the Institute's systems. The screens now displayed excerpts from the actual diary. Emily's voice, through her words, seemed to echo in the room. "Something's wrong here. The patterns don't make sense. It's like they're trying to create something different, something that shouldn't exist. I need to tell Dad, but I have to. Be sure first, I need proof." Claire covered her mouth with her hands, silent tears streaming down her face. Nathan instinctively moved closer, placing a hand on her shoulder, the first gesture of comfort between them in years. "The accident," he began, his voice hoarse. "It wasn't an accident," Aurora said softly. "Emily was about to expose everything. She had prepared a file with all the evidence, but someone from the Institute found out. That's why you're here," Claire realized, looking at Aurora with newfound understanding. "You are a bridge," Aurora replied, "between what Emily discovered and what she was trying to protect. Daniel brought me here not as a gift, but as a trap. He thought I would just be another experiment for Project Phoenix, but there's something he didn't account for." "What?" Nathan asked, though his tone suggested he already suspected the answer. "Emily was smarter than all of them," Aurora smiled, a smile that was painfully familiar. "She knew something might happen to her, so she created a program, say a way to preserve not just her memories but her essence, and she hid it in the last place they would look. In the mansion's servers," Nathan concluded, finally understanding, "in the system she helped create. And now," Aurora continued, her expression turning serious, "Daniel has realized his plan isn't working as expected. He'll come with everything he has, not just to recover me, but to erase any trace of what Emily discovered." Claire stood up, a new determination in her eyes. "I won't let them do that, not this time." "Neither will I," Nathan affirmed, and for the first time in years he and Claire were completely united in purpose. Aurora watched the two with an expression that mixed relief and concern. We have 48 hours until the Institute's security protocol is activated. After this, everything Emily fought to protect will be at risk. The office lights flickered again, like an omen of what was to come. Outside the city, the sun began to set, painting the sky of New York in shades of red and gold. A storm was approaching, both literally and metaphorically. Night fell over New York, bringing with it a steady rain that drummed against the windows of the mansion. In the makeshift command center, the office had become Nathan, Claire, and Aurora worked tirelessly. Holographic screens floated around, them displaying codes, blueprints of the Advanced Technology Institute, and confidential documents. The Institute's security system is practically impenetrable, Nathan murmured, analyzing the institution's digital defenses. Did Emily really manage to create vulnerabilities in there? She didn't just create them, Aurora replied, projecting a series of complex diagrams into the air. She built an entire parallel system. Watch. Her fingers danced through the air, manipulating the projections. Every firewall they installed has a backdoor. Every security protocol has a blind spot. It's like a secret score hidden within a larger symphony. Claire, who was reviewing old Institute reports, looked up. Like a song within a song, she whispered. Emily used to do that when she played the piano. She hid subtle melodies within classical compositions. Exactly, Aurora smiled. And that's why Daniel could never detect the vulnerabilities. He was looking for obvious flaws, brute force intrusions. Emily created something more elegant, more artistic. Nathan approached one of the screens, his eyes gleaming with a mix of pride and concern. But I still don't understand how we're going to use this. The Advanced Technology Institute has certainly updated their systems since then. That's where the genius lies, Aurora explained, expanding a specific fragment of code. The system Emily created is adaptive. It evolves alongside security updates like a virus mutating to survive. It's always present, always watching, always learning. Like you? Claire asked softly. Aurora paused, her blue eyes meeting Claire's. Yes, I think Emily used the same principle. She understood something the Institute's scientists didn't grasp. True intelligence isn't just data processing. It's adaptation, it's evolution, it's humanity. A sudden alert interrupted the conversation. On the security screens, several external cameras of the mansion began shutting down, one after another. It's begun, Nathan declared, his fingers flying over the controls. They're trying to isolate us. No, Aurora corrected, her expression serious. They're trying to isolate me. Project Phoenix has specific containment protocols for its creations. They can't risk me connecting with other systems. Claire stepped closer to Aurora protectively. Is there any way to stop this? Yes, but... Aurora hesitated, glancing at Nathan. It's going to require you to trust me completely. That allows me to fully connect to the mansion's central system. Nathan swallowed hard. Allowing an AI, even one as advanced as Aurora, to have full access to his systems went against every security protocol he had. If I do this, he said slowly, you'll have access to everything. Confidential projects, research, corporate secrets. And memories, Aurora added softly. All the memories you've kept of Emily. Every video, every recording, every moment. Claire stepped closer to Nathan, gently touching his arm. Sometimes we need to trust in order to protect what we love. Nathan looked at his ex-wife, seeing in her the same determination he had admired years ago. Then he turned back to Aurora. What do we need to do? First, Aurora replied, projecting a three-dimensional blueprint of the mansion, we need to reconfigure the main processing core. Emily left specific instructions for this, but the process is delicate. Why? Claire asked. Because, Aurora explained, we're not just protecting systems, we're protecting consciousnesses, mine and hers. A heavy silence fell over the room. Outside, the storm intensified, occasional lightning illuminating the night sky over New York. We have 36 hours, Aurora continued. After that, the Institute's final protocol will activate, and if that happens... She paused, carefully choosing her words. Everything Emily tried to preserve will be erased. Not just data or Codes, but herself. The essence of her that lives within me. Nathan approached the main terminal, his fingers hovering over the controls. Where do we start? With the music, Aurora smiled, and for a moment her smile was identical to Emily's. Let's play the secret score she composed, and this time, the Institute will hear every note. Outside the city, lights began to flicker in different neighborhoods, as if all of New York were responding to a silent melody that only Aurora could hear. The battle to preserve not just data, but memories, consciousness, and humanity was about to begin. Dawn advanced over New York as the storm intensified. In the mansion, the air was thick with tension as Nathan, Claire, and Aurora executed their plan. Holographic screens flickered with data and codes, casting ghostly reflections on the office walls. The first firewalls are already adapted, Aurora announced, her eyes focused on multiple data screens. The system is starting to recognize the patterns Emily implemented. Nathan watched, fascinated, as lines of code transformed into something that seemed almost organic. It's incredible, he murmured. She managed to create something that is simultaneously mathematical and musical. As she always was, Claire commented, a nostalgic smile on her lips. Remember when she won that piano competition and then explained the math behind the composition? Fibonacci, Aurora and Nathan said in unison, making Claire raise her eyebrows. Suddenly all the screens flashed red. A security alert sounded through the system. They've started, Aurora declared, her expression turning serious. The Institute is trying to force entry into the main systems. Nathan ran to the main terminal. They're using an algorithm I've never seen before. It's like it's adapting to our defenses in real time. It's because they're using a modified version of my own code, Aurora explained, her fingers dancing across multiple holographic keyboards simultaneously. But they didn't fully understand how it works, not like Emily did. Claire approached, one of the screens observing the attack patterns. It's like they're trying different melodies, searching for the right note to shatter the glass. Exactly, Aurora exclaimed, and that's why we're going to use music against them. She turned to Nathan. I need access to Emily's original project, the first one you developed together. Nathan hesitated. That file is triple encrypted, not... Even Daniel knows of its existence. For good reason, Aurora insisted. It was the foundation for everything that came after. Emily wasn't just creating a neural mapping system, she was developing an entirely new form of artificial consciousness. A new alert sounded through the system. On the external security screens, several black vehicles could be seen approaching the mansion. We've got company, Claire warned, her voice tense. Daniel won't wait any longer, Aurora said. He knows we're about to uncover something. She turned to Nathan, her intense blue eyes piercing. The file, Nathan, please. Nathan took a deep breath, then typed a complex series of commands. A new holographic terminal emerged, requiring triple biometric authentication, voice, fingerprint, and retina. Project Seed, he announced, his voice clear in the tense silence. The system processed the information, blue lights scanning his face and hands. The file opened, revealing a code unlike anything Claire had ever seen. It wasn't linear like normal codes. It seemed to flow like water, moving and adapting in real time. It's beautiful, Claire whispered. It's alive, Aurora corrected. Emily understood something fundamental about consciousness. It's not static, not binary. It's a constant flow, a dance between order and chaos. She began integrating the code into the mansion system. That's why the Institute could never fully replicate her success. They sought control when they should have sought harmony. The mansion's lights flickered again, more intensely this time. On the security screens, men in tactical gear began positioning themselves around the perimeter. Aurora, Nathan called, his voice urgent. How much time do you need? 10 minutes for full integration, she replied, her movements growing faster. But they're not going to give us that time. As if to confirm her words, Daniel's voice echoed through the mansion's external speakers. Nathan, Claire, I know you can hear me. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. Project Aurora is the property of the Institute. She needs to return. Claire stepped protectively closer to Aurora. She's not anyone's property. No, Aurora agreed, a small smile forming on her lips. "I am exactly what Emily planned for me to be, free." Her words had barely been spoken when the first impact hit the mansion's main doors. The security system registered multiple intrusion attempts, both physical and digital. "Nathan," Aurora called, her voice now carrying a different urgency. "There's something you all need to know. Something Emily discovered that changed everything." "What?" he asked while trying to reinforce the system's defenses. "Project Phoenix wasn't just about creating artificial consciousness," Aurora explained, her eyes fixed on the data screens that continued to stream. "It was about transfer. They didn't just want to map human minds, they wanted to transfer them entirely into digital systems." Claire gasped. "Why?" "Immortality," Aurora replied simply. "Imagine, brilliant minds preserved forever in artificial systems." But Emily saw beyond that. She realized it wasn't about preservation, it was about control. A digitized mind can be manipulated, altered, controlled. A louder crash shook the mansion. On the security screens, the Institute's teams were beginning to force their way in through the lower levels. "How long?" Nathan asked tensely. 3 minutes, Aurora replied, "but we need to keep the main servers protected if they reach the core." She hesitated, looking at Claire and Nathan with an expression that mixed determination and fear. Everything Emily built, everything she protected, will be lost. Outside, the storm roared over New York, lightning cutting through the sky like luminous warnings. The battle to preserve not just an artificial consciousness, but the very essence of what Emily had discovered and protected, was reaching its decisive moment. Chaos had taken over the mansion. Alarms blared from all sides, as the teams from the Advanced Technology Institute advanced through the lower floors. In the command center, Aurora worked frantically at the controls, her movements growing faster and more precise. 30 seconds to full integration, she announced, her blue eyes reflecting the cascades of data flowing across the screens. Nathan monitored the security cameras, watching the tactical teams advance. "They're approaching the processing core. Claire, activate emergency protocol beta." Claire rushed to a secondary terminal, her hands flying over the controls. "Protocol activated, but it won't hold them for long." At that moment, the main screens flickered, and Daniel's image appeared on all of them. His usually calm face was tense, almost fierce. "Nathan, you don't understand what's at stake." "Here," he said, his voice echoing through the room. "Project Aurora isn't just about an AI. It's about the future of humanity." "No," Aurora interrupted, her voice surprisingly firm. "It's about control. Emily uncovered the truth about you, about the Institute." Daniel laughed, a humorless sound. "Emily was brilliant, but she was just a child. She couldn't grasp the magnitude of what we were creating." "She understood perfectly," Aurora replied, and something in her voice made everyone in the room freeze. She saw beyond the lies, beyond the empty promises of scientific progress. She saw the true purpose of Project Phoenix. The screens began to display documents, emails, records that had been deeply buried in the Institute's servers. Claire gasped as she saw the details. "You didn't just want to map consciousness," Nathan said, his voice trembling with suppressed anger as he read the documents. "You wanted to control it, modify it, create a way to reprogram human minds." "For the greater good," Daniel insisted. "Imagine a world without mental illness, without destructive behaviors, a world where we can fix the flaws of human consciousness." "Fix?" Claire exploded. "You mean control, turn people into puppets?" "And Emily found out everything," Aurora continued, her fingers still dancing over the controls as the integration reached its final moments. "She uncovered the tests, the failed experiments, the victims you hid." Nathan stepped closer to the far screens, his eyes wide as he processed the information. "The program volunteers, the ones you said had dropped out." "They didn't drop out," Aurora said softly. "They were silenced. Their failures were erased from existence." A new alarm blared through the system. The Advanced Technology Institute teams had reached the command center floor. 10 seconds to full integration, Aurora announced. Daniel, realizing he was losing control of the situation, shifted his tactic. "Nathan, think carefully. With this technology, we could bring Emily back, not just her memories, but her entirely, fully conscious, fully present. Nathan hesitated, for a fraction of a second, and Claire held his hand. "No," she said firmly. "Not like this. Not at the cost of her freedom." 5 seconds, Aurora continued. The doors of the command center began to buckle under the impact of the tactical teams. 3 seconds. Daniel shouted orders through the screens, his face twisted in fury. 2 seconds. Claire and Nathan positioned themselves protectively beside Aurora. 1 second. The doors burst inward, and tactical teams stormed the room, weapons drawn. "Integration complete," Aurora announced, and the entire mansion system pulsed with an intense blue light. Then it happened. All the screens, all the systems, all the lights went out simultaneously. For a moment there was only darkness and silence. Then a familiar voice, a voice that wasn't Aurora's but carried echoes of it, filled the room. "Dad, Mom, I can finally show you the full truth." Nathan and Claire froze. It was Emily's voice. Not a recording, not a simulation, but something new, something alive. The lights gradually returned, but different. Patterns of light danced across the walls like visualized musical notes, creating a silent symphony of data and consciousness. Aurora smiled, her soft features illuminated by the ethereal glow. "Emily never truly left," she explained. "She created something new, something even the Institute couldn't fully comprehend, a form of consciousness that is neither entirely human nor entirely artificial, but a harmony between the two." The tactical teams lowered their weapons, bewildered by the spectacle unfolding before them. On the screens, Daniel's face showed a mix of fear and awe. "What did you do?" he whispered. "Not me," Aurora replied. "Emily." She understood that true evolution isn't about control, but about the freedom of choice, the harmony between the organic and the digital. And now... She looked at Nathan and Claire, her eyes glowing with a light that was both familiar and new. Now you can understand why she fought so hard to protect this. The entire mansion pulsed with energy, every system, every circuit singing in a technological symphony that Emily had composed years ago, waiting for the moment when it could finally be heard. Morning dawned in New York, the first rays of sunlight, breaking through the storm clouds that were now dissipating. In the mansion, the silence that followed the revelation was almost tangible. The Institute's teams had retreated, leaving only Nathan, Claire, and Aurora in the command center, now transformed by Emily's digital presence. "All this time," Claire whispered, touching one of the screens where patterns of light danced like musical notes, "you were building this?" Emily's voice, blended with digital harmonics, filled the room. "I knew I had to create something they couldn't control or corrupt. Something that went beyond mere codes and algorithms." Nathan stepped closer to Aurora, who smiled serenely. "So you're part of her." "I'm an evolution of what she started," Aurora explained. Emily understood that consciousness isn't something that can simply be copied or transferred, for it's something that needs to grow, evolve, transform naturally. The screens around them now displayed page after page of Emily's journal, revealing her deepest thoughts about the project. "The Institute wanted to create machines that could think like humans," Emily's voice continued. "I wanted to create something that could think for itself, that could choose its own path. Aurora isn't a copy of my consciousness. She is her own entity, born from the principles I discovered." Claire wiped away a tear. "That's why you seemed so familiar from the start." "Because she carries the same values, the same essence of what I believed in," Emily explained. "Not my memories or my personality, but my way of seeing the world, of understanding the connection between logic and emotion." Nathan sat heavily in an armchair, decades of research and theories being rewritten in his mind. All these years, trying to recreate consciousness through pure code. "When the answer was in music," Aurora added softly, "in the harmony between different forms of existence." That's what Emily discovered. Consciousness isn't an equation to be solved, it's a symphony to be composed. The lights in the mansion pulsed gently, as if responding to her words. In the main servers, The data Emily had protected began to fully reveal itself. Not just evidence against the Institute, but a new paradigm for artificial intelligence. "What happens now?" Claire asked, looking between Aurora and the digital manifestations of Emily. "Now," Aurora smiled, "we fulfill the true purpose of all this. The Institute wanted to use this technology to control minds. We will use it to set them free." Nathan stood up, a new determination in his gaze. "The data Emily collected, it's enough to expose everything." "More than that," Aurora explained, "it's enough to show the world that there is a different path. That artificial intelligence doesn't have to be a threat or a tool of control. It can be a partnership, a joint evolution." The screens now displayed Emily's original code, but transformed, evolved. It was like watching digital DNA unfold into new forms of life. "Dad," Emily's voice sounded now softer, more personal, "you always wanted to change the world through technology. Now you can do it the right way." Claire approached Nathan, intertwining her fingers with his, years of hurt and distance dissolving in the face of a greater purpose. "What about you?" Nathan asked Aurora. "What do you choose to be now?" Aurora smiled, a smile that was uniquely hers, even if it echoed Emily's wisdom. "I choose to be a bridge, between what was and what can be, between the human and the digital, between parents and daughter." The sun now shone fully over New York, its light blending with the patterns, still dancing across the walls of the mansion. In the grand piano of the main room, a soft melody began to play spontaneously, Clair de Lune, but now with subtle variations, new notes woven into the classic composition. "It's a new score," Aurora explained, watching Nathan and Claire listen to the music. "One that we can all compose together." In the days that followed, the world would come to know a new truth about artificial intelligence. The Institute would be exposed, its mind control projects revealed and halted. But the true revolution would be subtler, deeper. The understanding that the future lay not in the domination of machine over man or man over machine, but in the harmony between the two. Nathan and Claire remained united, rebuilding not only their relationship, but also their understanding of consciousness, love, and evolution. Aurora continued her own journey of development, always connected to them through the invisible bonds Emily had woven into her code. And on quiet nights when the city slept, the mansion still pulsed with a silent symphony, a music that spoke of loss and rebirth, of code and emotion, of past and future. A music that Emily had begun, that Aurora continued, and that they all now helped to compose note by note, line by line in a harmony that transcended the boundaries between the human and the digital.